Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today I want to talk about the changes that have happened to a YouTube policy that was, I think, pretty universally disliked, right? Like, when people, especially like in the last few months, heard about changes that were being made towards this policy, both people in the audience and creators alike were upset by it, because it just seemed like it was more of YouTube cracking down on free speech on the platform, cracking down on what people say, and just more or less corporatizing the platform even more. Obviously, YouTube, when it was founded, was like a beacon, I guess, on the internet for people to come and quote-unquote broadcast themselves. But over time here online, obviously, things have changed, society's changed, culture's changed, and what's really kind of, cool and not cool on the internet has also changed. Now, this policy obviously is revolving around the usage of swear words inside of content. Now, a few months ago, YouTube announced that they were going to be making some changes to their policy surrounding swearing in content. And over the last few years, if you didn't know, YouTube has continuously got more and more strict about the usage of swear words and whatnot on the platform. Back 10 years ago, nobody really ever cared, like you could sit there and you could say pretty much whatever you wanted in your video and it was going to be monetized. Like, you didn't really have a problem with that kind of thing, right? People could sit there and say 700 swear words if they wanted to, and YouTube would pretty much do just about nothing about it because, well, it just really wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't something that people cared about. But as YouTube has grown as a platform and gotten, billions of monthly users, now advertisers suddenly act like, swearing in YouTube videos is like just the complete last hope of humanity. Like, you can't do that, right? Because it's sacred to not swear in YouTube content. Advertisers act like, nobody in the real world ever cusses, nobody in, music or movies or television or books, anything like that. They never swear. There's no swearing inside of any of that stuff, right? But, on YouTube, it's gotten a lot more strict over the last few years. And, it got to the point with these latest updates that, like me, I personally was really worried about my content because I've always been the type of person to swear in my content, like I can only remember a few times in YouTube history where I have actively not sworn in my content. Like, it's just something that I've done for so long. I've tried to avoid overusing it and whatnot inside of my content because, like, I don't want to constantly be demonetized and deal with these types of issues. But I mean, this is something that, it's just been kind of part of my content for a while. Like, I've always just cursed and said swear words whenever I felt like they were appropriate. And over the last few years on YouTube, that became a lot more of a no-no. They started protecting that a little bit more here. They just kind of gradually continued to update their community guidelines and whatnot to where, more offensive language and especially repeated usage of more offensive language just results in you getting limited demonetization ads on your videos. Like, you basically get punished for it. And I was just worried, and a lot of other content creators were worried that YouTube was basically going to the point where, like, hey, you can't swear at all if you want to be monetized because they're taking it so seriously now, and, like, you might as well just, like, chalk ever saying swear words in your content. I know to, like, an outsider or whatever, it might sound stupid, like, oh, you can't cuss in your YouTube videos, oh no, what's the big deal, right? You can't go a couple minutes without swearing. Well, it's not about the fact that, oh, we can't go without cussing and shit like that, right? It really comes down to, should YouTube really be the ones dictating what I say? You know what I mean? Like, when it comes down to, like, shit that's not even really that harmful, like, me swearing in a video is not gonna create World War III. At least I don't think it's going to, but, YouTube, they just completely over-policed these kinds of things. And a lot of creators were worried that, YouTube was gonna basically be pushing their type of content to the wayside. You can't be open with your audience anymore. You can't swear and be yourself and talk like yourself. But YouTube recently announced some changes to their policy that, honestly, man, they were well needed, like they were definitely something that YouTube took a W in addressing. I do want to say, like, I usually make a video talking about if, like, oh, YouTube has a new bad policy, right? I make a video talking about it. So I only find it really fair that I make a video talking about it when they do something right. You know what I mean? When they finally come together, make the right decision, and send something the right way, I want to cover that too. I want to be actually fair and bring up things that I think are good from both sides, right? So this all came out a couple days ago. I am a little late to the punch. I wanted to kind of let it fully unfold and everything before I made a video about it, but now, everything seems to be settled the dust on this one at least, and we're pretty much ready to talk about it. So, this is of March 7th. All curse words are no longer treated the same. Moderate profanity anytime can get the green icon. The F-bomb in the first 7 seconds or repeatedly can receive limited ads. Background music with profanity can now get ads, and profanity in your title or thumbnail can still not run ads. So these guidelines are a little bit more straightforward. This isn't the full details of everything. If you want like a more, in-depth breakdown of what words are allowed or aren't allowed and definition of like moderate profanity and whatnot, you can watch their video on the YouTube creator page and everything about it. But this is a pretty good rundown of basically the changes that they've made regarding this entire swearing policy. Now, obviously, YouTube has heard a lot of the criticism where people have been, basically complaining that, hey, you guys are doing some stupid shit with this, right? Like, who really sits around and worries about like YouTube cursing? I've had maybe a couple emails throughout the history of making YouTube videos and like a one-off comment every here and now and then or whatever, where someone would be like, oh, you cuss too much in your videos or whatever. But like most of the time people don't care about shit like that because it's so stupid to care about, man. Like, you're on the internet, people on here are gonna fucking cuss. Like, it's just kind of how it works, man. Like, if you're on the internet, you should expect to see some profanity. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but it's like these people have never loaded up like the internet ever on a computer or a phone or anything. Like, they act like they've never used the internet. And these people who make these advertising rules and whatnot act like they've never used the internet, All these companies are sitting out here trying to morally grandstand, acting like, oh, well, we can't monetize on YouTube content that has too much swearing and yada, yada, yada. It's not good for our brand. It's not brand friendly, yada, yada, yada. These are the same brands that, they'll sponsor festivals full of rappers, who rap about drugs and guns and violence. And I like rap music and whatnot, don't get me wrong, but they'll sponsor that shit. They'll, run commercials during movies on TV where people are getting killed, blown up, all kinds of different things. They'll play commercials inside of anything, right? Like, they don't care until it comes to YouTube all of a sudden. And then these advertisers, what do they have now? They've got their customers to look after. We don't think customers would resonate with this near our brand, But God forbid, hey, if a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie comes on TV, they'll spend hundreds of thousands to advertise in that slot. But hey, man, if, little old Optimus over here in the goddamn office in his house says shit too many times, all of a sudden the fucking police are gonna come kicking the door in, telling him, hey, chill that shit out, right? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. I don't really understand how that's supposed to work, right? But at least they've finally addressed this in some way, right? Because a lot of the time when there's an issue with YouTube, when there's a problem like this, YouTube is not only not quick to respond, but they pretty much never really respond. And if they do, it's the absolute worst response. It's usually them doubling down or giving a terrible explanation. And this time, they took what people said and they actually did something about it. So I can appreciate that, right? Because these changes in general are a lot more relaxed and a lot less restrictive than what we were kind of dealing with. And even like ever since the changes had been made beforehand, I had been noticing an uptick in demonetization on my content. There was a period in time where like 1 every 3 videos was getting demonetized for like a month. And yeah, that kind of sucked. And I realized then like, hey, this is like really kind of pushing the limit with these new rules and whatnot, dude. Like, they really don't want this type of content on YouTube anymore. And there's always been a really good argument, I feel like, for like how this whole thing could just be completely avoided, right? Like, what is the point in having apps like YouTube Kids, which completely, section off content made for children and people who shouldn't be having to deal with the advertiser not friendly shit because, they're kids. They're on here to watch fucking Coco Melon and drink their apple juice before they shit themselves and go to bed. Which I get that, right? Like, you don't want them seeing, Optimus on here cussing 30 times. I get that, right? That's cool. That's not a problem. But they have an app like YouTube Kids there to handle that traffic, to like handle that and, kind of cordon these people a little bit away from like the rest of the app or the rest of the website where, more mature, moderated content is going to be provided by adults like me. If they already have made that distinction, then why are we still like playing tiptoe to deal with the advertisers, right? Because at the end of the day, like, YouTube is such a huge business, right? Like, it's absolutely one of the largest websites in the world. It garners so much traffic to the platform. Advertisers are genuinely losing out if they don't participate in the YouTube ad network. If Coca-Cola decided to stop using the Google ad network because that's what YouTube runs through and to boycott cussing on YouTube or something, that would be a net negative for their company. They would definitely lose money at some point because, yeah, sure, maybe they're not spending money on advertising, but they're not pulling in as many customers because of the advertising at that point, because they're not advertising on one of the biggest platforms on the internet. It's just not financially sensible for these companies to go through with any of these threats. So I don't know why YouTube has like historically played this weird leverage role where it's like, oh, they've got the fucking, they've got it, man. They've got the absolute nuke on us, dude. We can't do anything here now. So thankfully, these rules have been updated a little bit to give people a little bit more leeway and a little bit more freedom in what they say in their videos. Because, I mean, even from like a moral stance, like, are people really still sitting around arguing about whether or not cuss words are fucking bad anymore, bro? Like, on a genuine note, unless we're in like a church or something like that, like, do most people honestly give a shit about cussing anymore? Like, everyone cusses. Even kids these days cuss. Like, when we were kids, we cussed. This delusional fantasy that people have like constantly wanted to live in for like, oh, well, we can't have swearing, that's not acceptable. Yet it's some of the most commonly used language on the planet, like, just doesn't make sense to me. And this is a completely avoidable issue if like just a couple of like bigwigs in fucking suits just like chilled out a little bit. But thankfully YouTube has done at least a little bit of something to give us some breathing room, because I mean, it's not often that we get them actually on our good side here. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about the new ad-friendly guidelines and signing out.